セガサターンシロ
Welcome on in.
It helps when I unmute the mics. Let's do that again. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to SHIRO Show. Saturn Dave here. Danthrax and Trainoco welcoming you to the show. And we got 25 people in the chat. Everybody give us a thumbs up while you can. And then yank some other folks in here. Like, where the heck are they, right?
Thanks for joining us on this Saturn Day Eve.
Hot Friday night.
Yeah, well, tomorrow, of course, is the 29th birthday of the Saturn in North America. 29th anniversary.
29th anniversary of their failure. And it falls on a
Saturday, too, which is cool.
And to celebrate that, I've decided, not as a collective, but just me, that I'm going to burn every bridge I've made. Bridges will be burnt. I will be dousing with gasoline, getting a heavy flamer, burning that bridge down. There will be none saved from my wrath. My wrath will be totalitarian and total, and judgments will be final. Public.
Pat's having a good week this week.
Burn down.
Okay.
You could tell.
Everything's going to be on blast. Nothing will be safe. Especially you, John.
We've got Wiener Bob, number one, Sega. I wonder, does he get here like an hour early? Because he's always first. Wiener Bob is always first. Maybe. Dragons of Saturn, Christian Marte, Tales of Saturn, Neil Henderson, Stone Man is here, Analog Black Sheep, Dan the Mega Driver is in today. Hey Dan, how's it going? Pudgy Bunny, Nathan Anderson, Artist, Chronole.
It said that you're a bit louder than us, I think.
Oh, I'll turn it down. Let me see.
Yeah, Shadow said you're much louder.
Much louder. Let's go negative.
Dave just has a lot more to be inflammatory about. Okay. He's also going to be dropping some truth bombs.
I'm a little close to the mic. Maybe I need to pull it away. But let me know if it's too much. I can always turn it down more. I went like negative 1.2 decibels. We've got
you sound pretty decent.
We got Dragons. Oh, I already said that. Chronole, Con Artist, Stuart Stapleton, Stranger Moon is with us.
Fun, Raiden.
Yeah. Moose Track's here. Hugh Jazz. Hey Dave, how's it going?
Hugh Jazz, love that Hugh Jazz.
We got J-Rock 424, Captain Hawden, Scotty Moe's here, Trekkies is here, Michael Freesh.
Stranger Moon.
Who else am I missing? Raiden.
Chris Housen, Stranger Moon.
Shadow Mask, of course. Welcome everybody. Yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate
the latest Shiro show.
Euro show. I'm gonna get a Euro after this.
I'm on I'll try not to cough on the mic, but just so everybody knows, I am still under the weather, and I'm just doing the best
those facts on the mic.
Best I can to just get through it.
J-Rock said, saw Voltaire praising the Saru, and I ported 2 Saturn guns. We've been pretty good. Welcome to the game, J-Rock. Welcome to the Saturn family. If you need any help, we got a tech support chat, Saru channel in the discussion. Tech support channel, we will help you out. And if you can't, sorry, that sucks. But
Scotty Mo asked if I checked out Sonic Symphony. I don't know what you mean. Like, I didn't get tickets.
There's a concert series. Yeah, you didn't?
Yeah, like, well, I think Scotty went to the one in Cleveland that happened recently. I didn't go to it. But that's super cool that he went.
Dan
I've heard people say it's legit. It's like a pretty good experience. Like folks in the UK too.
Yeah.
I want to go see it. It's coming to Phoenix in June. I'm hoping maybe is it coming to San Diego for you, Dave? Maybe I can fly down. We can go see it together.
No, if anything, it would be like LA or San Francisco. I know it's not coming to San Diego.
I'd love to go see it.
I'd take Jesse in a heartbeat if it was, but you know, California is a very tall state, and usually it would require me to drive several hours just to go.
You're in California. What is it, like an hour trip to San Diego from LA?
Yeah, no, it's like 7 hours to get from Southern, or 10 hours to get from Southern California to Northern California.
I've heard so many people that aren't from the United States say that. It's like, dude, California is like the size of like the size of Europe almost.
Well, it's bigger. It's like bigger than Japan. It's bigger than Japan. Yeah, I believe it is bigger than the UK, or. Yeah, landmass wise, I don't know. It might be close, but yeah, I think so.
Said live stream from the concert experience, Pat. I think that's called illegal.
So I didn't see if James was here. I thought James was gonna join us on the.
What'd you want to say, Dan? You got some?
Nothing. I'm just replying to Scotty Moe, who asked if I was in Ohio, and I'm like, he thought I wasn't. I'm like, yeah, I am. Okay. Wiener Bob, thank you for the $4.99. Dave is putting the milk in the bowl before cereal. Budget or buttery? Budget? Bad or good?
Right.
What?
I'm still trying to understand the question before I can answer it.
Yeah.
I think you just.
Is this like
saying? Do you put the cereal in before the milk, or do you put the milk in then the cereal?
Well, I would put the cereal in first. I would put the cereal in first.
We're a bunch of old folks here.
That'd be like my son does this thing where he gets water from the fridge. He gets the water first, and then he tries to put ice cubes in it, and it's just like splashing all over the place. I'm like, honey, put the ice cubes first, and then the water. You know.
I prefer cereal than milk. That's mine. Honestly,
I just eat cereal.
I think that's pretty
dry cereal all the way.
You just go dry cereal. Okay, well that's just a snack. That's not. that's like
breakfast.
I like Shadow Mask to build. Shadow Mask to take. I put cereal in my mouth and dry, and then drink the milk straight out of the carton. Hey, that's. I did that before the live stream.
Way.
Yeah.
On the Spirit Hunters.
Yeah.
I made a milkshake in my mouth where I put ice cream in my mouth. I drank a gallon of milk and swished it on my mouth.
That's called deconstructed cereal. That's very gastronomic
That's
of you.
The term.
Yeah, you're like, it's a deconstructed breakfast cereal.
Oh no, I did root beer float. I got a gallon of milk. I drank that. I put ice cream in my mouth and root beer, and I like swashed my mouth around like I was like you doing mouthwash, and then I swallowed it. It's on a podcast. Let's see if I can find it on the Spirit Hunters. But I did it live, and I started drinking the milk straight, and I almost vomited. It was pretty fun. Highly recommend watching that podcast. I'll find it.
I'm the only one. I noticed I'm the only one that's not wearing a SHIRO or Saturn shirt
What
today.
The heck? It's Saturn Day tomorrow. It's literally the Saturn's birthday. Come on.
I don't have the power.
Find the time to change.
Sorry, Dave. You made us. Just joking.
Brutal.
That is a good point. This is Mother's Day weekend, though. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do anything tomorrow for Saturn Day, which is a bummer. But I mean, it is Mother's Day on Sunday, and we've got a bunch of stuff coming up. We'll see. I might be able to stream, but we'll see. I don't know.
Oh no, you got a thing. Your hat, Saturn Dave SD.
That's true.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go, Saturn Dave. That's his hat.
Making it work.
And he always has the Saturn pillow next to him. So
what have you guys? What have you guys been up to over the week, though? Just out of curiosity.
God, I've been so busy.
I missed the last
the busiest
show.
Time of year for work for me. So I've been super busy at work and then tired after work. We're watching Cavs games because they're in the playoffs, and it's that's stressful too.
Oh yeah, I saw them kick the hell out of the Celtics the other night.
Yeah, I know you can call them the Celtics. I think that's more appropriate. The Boston Celtics. Yeah, they spanked them last night, man. That was fun. After Boston killed the Cavs by like a similar amount a couple nights prior, like they've beaten each other by 20-some points, so pretty swingy. But it's wild that Cleveland beat them in Boston, so we'll see how it goes going back.
I was going to say that they bombed, and I was going to change their team name, but I realized, I probably shouldn't call them.
Maybe not.
No.
Scotty Mo says I've unfortunately started watching the Knuckles show. I want to know why that's unfortunate. Yeah, why is that unfortunate? I heard it was good.
I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I haven't watched it either.
The road.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah?
Shadow Mask says, Pat, how do you feel about losing Arizona Coyotes to Utah? Good. They were a leech on the state. They pretty much wanted to pay for their own stadium. Good riddance. Enjoy Utah. That's what I have to say.
Okay, then there you go.
Like the thing is that they didn't draw in the crowds, and they expected the taxpayers to pay for a new stadium when the Jobbing.com arena was perfectly fine for what they needed to do. They got downgraded to the dang Arizona State University one, which was a big top 10 LOL moments in my life. And then they got out of the state because they were garbage and bringing the people. The only time they're really decent is when what's his name, the famous Canada hockey player, Wayne Gretzky coached them, and that was really the only draw. Besides that, no, they were garbage. They made their bed. The owner made their bed. Sucks they don't have a hockey team. Sorry about that, AZ fans, but yeah, I'm just gonna, like I said, bridges would be burnt. Like this is the truth bombs getting dropped here. I'm sorry people don't like what I said about the Coyotes. But yeah, once you get greedy, I'm not, and making me pay for your damn stadium, I'm not gonna say sorry. Sorry, guys.
Sure. Scotty Mo says, I've been in the minority apparently, though. I legit had a hard time getting through the first movie. He's talking about the first Sonic movie. Only kind of enjoyed the second one. Yeah, that is the minority, because most people kind of felt like they were okay. Not saying that they're great. They're not great. I mean, I don't think they're like
not perfect.
A+ movies, like, but they're passable. They're definitely better than like the recent Marvel movies. You know?
Yeah, they're fun. They're fun. You know, they're fun movies.
I'm looking forward to the Shadow.
It looks like they're really gonna. Yeah, it looks like they're really gonna lean into the Sonic fan service. Yeah. In the third movie, so that's cool.
They just need to have Jim Carrey put on some weight, though. Gotta have him put on some weight.
Yeah, they might. Maybe he's gonna be
he's gonna have a
Yeah, he's gotta be Eggman.
Gonna be in a suit. Cool.
That suit. Like Big Mama's house.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dr. Robotnik.
Well, overnight, Sega released its yearly financial report, and they have a slide for the Sonic franchise where they're like, we're going to unify the community, the fan base, under the banner of the Year of Shadow, you know, with their little logo that they put out recently. So, because, you know, they're going to have Shadows featured in the third movie at the end of the year, and then also they're going to have that Shadow's going to be added to the Sonic Generations remake or remaster or whatever that's coming out this fall.
Right.
I think, was it a sequel? I've heard it was a sequel, and I've heard people say it's a remake. I don't know.
I guess we're not entirely sure, because it's called like Sonic Generations X Shadow. So I guess we'll see. Maybe it is a new game.
They
haven't started
clear it up for us. We don't know. But yeah, you know what I want? The Shadow related? I'm just gonna say it right now. Shadow the Hedgehog HD remaster. Enough said.
Oh yeah, that'd be. Hey, if the kids love the third movie enough, they'll probably be clamoring for a Shadow the Hedgehog remaster. Kids love Shadow. His particular brand of edginess is just very appealing to the younger set.
It's true. It's true. Jesse has like a.
Skyler said that IDW and Sonic Prime turned Shadow on for him.
There you go.
TMI Scotty Mo didn't need to. I'm just joking. I
feel like you misread what his
I'm just joking, Scotty Mo. Yeah, he said that he's really hyped for Shadow now, which I. Sorry, Scotty Mo.
Dan the Mega Driver says it's a remaster with additional Shadow themed content. Okay, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, like part of my enjoyment of the Sonic movies might have been the fact that I took my, I don't know, 7 or 8-year-old at the time to them. And I mean, you know, that does like I say, they aren't like stellar films, but like my kid just like loved the hell out of them. And I
a lot of them.
So I went to see I've seen both movies in theaters, like opening night, but I remember on the first movie's opening night, when the movie ended, there were these two little boys who were probably like 7, 8 years old, and they could not stop running around the theater during the credits, like they were like pretending to be Sonic. Right. And I thought that was the cutest thing. I'm like, you know what? If I were their age, I'd probably be doing the same thing. Like, that's so cool to see them like so excited after seeing the Sonic movie. You know, that they're like running around pretending to be Sonic. It's like cool. Like the new generation is kind of being formed here. Yeah. New generation of Sonic fans.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So. I think the coolest thing was when Shadow appeared at the end of 2. I guess spoilers if you haven't seen the second one. The whole theater was like freaking out, like screaming. Yeah. Like they're so excited. Like
and I mean, same thing with the first one where Tails shows up at the end. It's like, you know, and I remember like people were mad like when I accidentally like leaked that little detail when I went to like an early access thing. I was like, okay, sorry.
We both did that,
I kind of figured folks would have known by now.
Dave.
Yeah, no spoilers. Tails is in the second movie for those who don't know.
Let's hope they don't announce Rouge the Bat, like they shadow drop her at the end of it, because I probably have to go to the bathroom afterwards.
She should be in the third movie. I want her to be like a surprise addition to the third movie. That would be cool.
like a surprise cameo or whatever.
Just steals like the Master Emerald from
that'd be rad.
Cool.
Yeah,
we'll see. I mean, you know, like I think you know, the super fan in me would always prefer they go like really stick to the script and kind of channel as much of the original like 1991 Sonic vibe as they possibly could. But it's like I'm realistic enough to know that it's always going to be like a compromise, you know? And in terms of, as far as compromises go, like I felt like the Sonic movie was actually stronger than the Mario movie. The Mario movie looked and sounded great. Don't get me wrong, but story-wise and everything like that, like I actually felt like the Sonic movies were a little stronger, to be honest with you. What was actually there in terms of substance, but the Mario movie didn't need to be. The Mario movie didn't really need to have like an incredible story or anything. It's Mario, you know, breaking blocks.
I used to saw a lot of people being really less hype for it. I don't know, like I think they did it right with Sonic, because I think with with Mario they just added so much like licensed music and stuff, and it took away from what makes it special. Like I think that's the issue, is that they try to make it like an Illumination film, which, like I said, the movie isn't bad.
Right.
It's not good, but like they delayed it because of apparently they got really bad preview reception from it, which is believable.
Oh, really?
Like it was like the people were saying it was abysmal because basically, for the people that don't know, they do a movie preview like a year in advance. Like I've done a couple of them for a few movies myself, but essentially they get like some people in some random place in the country and have them show it, and it's like people are harsh. Like they tell you, be harsh on it, be honest and stuff like that, and like. Yeah, I imagine like the movie I saw. I'll say it once it comes out, but it'll probably be almost completely different in that regard. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Mario one was completely redone, and it really just got lucky. But yeah, I don't know. Like I just think the Mario movie just didn't really hit for me. This like Sonic was just fun, and like I guess it had that charisma, but the Mario movie just felt like what? Yeah. I guess cool, Chris Pratt. Like I don't know, like.
Knuckles was what really saved the second movie for me. Like that his character and Idris Elba, like the delivery and everything like that. I was like, okay, I can get behind this, and it's creative enough, and it kind of subverts expectation enough that I feel like it's good. The Mario movie, I left there thinking it did what it came to do. Like it got the job done, but it wasn't like anything I'm gonna like remember. You know, like. It didn't leave that big of an impression, to be honest with you, but yeah. So anyway, I'm looking forward.
Says the Sonic movies need the Sonic R soundtrack. Yeah, absolutely.
They do. Oh my God, they
at least need one song.
Like Sega really needs to embrace that. You know, like realize like there's so much cachet in that there is, and it's beloved by so many people. Like they need to get Richard Jakes doing more soundtracks for their games and just lean into it, you know, because people like he's everything he touches is gold in my book. Like he doesn't make a bad soundtrack. I've even listened to the stuff for like some of the other modern games that he's done, and the dude's incredible. And like, you know, folks love his stuff so much, and like have such, you know, nostalgic feelings for those soundtracks. I think Sega just needs to like give them a whole bunch of money and put them on retainer, you know.
But yeah, I'm really happy with the way that the Sonic movie franchise is going. I've heard, like I said, the only people I've heard of Knuckles is more of a political thing for something in there, but I won't really comment. It's not really the right time and place for that sort of stuff. But like there's some. I know one of the reasons why is that thing. But yeah, it's not really the main focus of the story that drives that. But apparently, what I've heard is that it's pretty decent to pretty good. Like it wasn't like bad at all. But you know,
I agree with Dan. Dan the Mega Driver. Sign up Jakes and TJ Davis for the soundtrack, and it'll be Oscar worthy.
Agreed.
There you go.
Speaking of music and Oscar worthy, another update. I pretty much have beat Persona 5 Royal. I haven't played out the final bits of the you know, epilogue or whatever, but I've beat the main boss and everything like that, and uncovered all of the drama and the juicy bits and stuff like that. And phenomenal game. I'm way late to the party, I realize, and that's just being a dad. You know, like I've had to stay up really late and not get a lot of sleep to do this. And but the soundtrack is phenomenal, like absolutely phenomenal soundtrack. And the Persona team, like I absolutely love their games. Like they just make great games, and there's always so much atmosphere and vibe, and then the music is always incredible. Pat and I were debating with his roommate like whether Persona 4 or 5 had the better soundtrack. 5 has really grown on me to the point where I might like put them side by side. I wouldn't say one is better than the other. I would just say that it's all just
it's a different vibe.
It's a different vibe, yeah. And I mean the game is too. You know, you got the countryside, and then you've got like Tokyo. Dan, you've played it, right? You played through it back in a few years ago? Yeah, Persona 5.
No, I've never played a single Persona game.
Oh, okay. You haven't? Oh my God.
No.
I think they're right up your alley. I think they're literally like right up your alley.
Do you?
I do. I do.
I don't feel like Demons as Pokemon is really up my alley, but
oh yeah, okay. Then I guess like, but you know, like it's I don't know. I think you just have to kind of play one and try it out, and it's like it's so. All I can say is like I never thought that a Persona game would be something I would get into before I played Persona 4, and it just like blew me away. I was like, wow, this is so much better than I thought it would be, you know. Okay. And then it's like subsequently I've gone back and played the other games, but anyway, so yeah, like in terms of Atlas, it's probably my favorite. What were you gonna say, Pat?
I would say, like, objectively, I'll agree that I think gameplay wise, I think Persona 5 has the better gameplay and some of the better dungeons, because like I'm not a big fan of the randomized dungeons in 4. But, like I do really enjoy like 4 a lot. Like I still think I'd probably prefer 4 over 5 as a whole package, but I think 5 is a good running. It's like really close. It's like almost like that. Like it's like I don't know, like that. Like it's super duper close.
Okay. Well, anyway, they're both great games. Yeah, and I mean, I would love to play 3 Reloaded, but that I don't think is coming to Switch. We'll see. If it ends up coming to PC or whatever.
Switch 2.
Yeah, maybe it'll be the Switch 2. I mean, they put Persona 5 out on PC, so maybe they'll put 3 Reload, or have they? I don't even know if they have or not.
3 Reload on PC.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's probably how I'll end up playing it then. Yeah.
Wasn't it like the first Atlas game to launch on PC the same day as consoles?
I think so, yeah.
Persona 3 Reloaded, yeah. So
okay,
yeah. Sega's finally turning Atlas around as far as the PC releases go.
They're like, hey, get on PC now.
And I mean, it's good. It's good because I would say like more people are streaming Persona as a result. You know, like there's a lot of people streaming it on PC. You know, as their preferred platform. But I will say a lot of folks say you cannot play it comfortably with the keyboard and mouse. Like you need to just use like an Xbox controller or whatever. Yeah, because it just feels weird. But anyway, yeah. So that's an update for me. Like I can't spoil it because I know Pat, you're only up to Futaba or something like that.
I pretty much have everything spoiled for me in the game, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, is that right? Okay, well anyway.
We don't want to spoil everybody at home. I guess.
It's phenomenal. It was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I don't know.
Let's just say that my roommate spoiled the Akechi and Adachi twists is all I'm gonna say.
I will say this though, it was like 150 hours that I put into it, and that's not including the first 40 hours that I scrapped and started over. So yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. It's a lot.
I beat a game myself though this week.
What's that?
I beat Ocarina of Time on 3DS.
Oh, nice.
Congrats.
Yeah, it's not the first time I beat the game. It's the first time I beat that variant of it. I've beaten the original Ocarina of Time like 15 plus times, 8 times or whatever. This one is the first time I actually, because I was like, I don't remember why I was in Ocarina mood, but I was like, you know what, I'll play through Ocarina and Majora's Mask again. No, I played it on 2D.
Oh, I was going to say, that's a really good question. You played in 3D mode, no?
I did halfway 3D for a little bit, like I put it to the halfway slider, but
I got you. Yeah.
The full 3D kind of messes with my eyes a bit.
So like it's not a game. It's not a game you really have to play in 3D mode. Like I would say that there are some games on the 3DS that you have to play in 3D mode, like the Kid Icarus game. Like it's like that game was made for 3D mode.
Made for it.
And if you're playing it in 2D, then you're just like missing a trick, you know. But yeah, with a remake like that, where it's just like, okay, I'm familiar with this game. I've played it before. It doesn't feel like you need to play it in 3D because it wasn't made specifically for 3D. Yeah.
I like I said, I like playing it. The only issue is that if I do it for a while, the way I play it, it actually hurts my eyes.
Yeah. So it can.
I do it once in a while, like, oh, I'll check how it is. Oh, this is kind of cool, and I'll play like an hour or two, and then I'll put it back to 2D just because, like, okay.
I mean, honestly,
my eyes being decimated.
You just hit the nail on the head for like the 3D mode on 3DS in general. That's like what most people do. They're like, oh, here's a party trick, you know, turn on the 3D mode. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Back to 2D mode because I actually want to play the damn game, you know, instead of actually like, you know, that's how I always was, honestly. Like it was always really cool that it worked and that you could do it. But at the end of the day, I just ended up going back to 2D mode.
Because you're kind of fighting with trying to find the sweet spot to get the 3D to look good. And
exactly.
That's kind of frustrating. Like they put out a new version of the 3DS that like uses eye tracking to like make it a little better, but I never got that one. We just have the original 3DS. So
yeah, I have how much better it is. I had the new 3DS XL. Whatever the latest one was.
Yeah, and, I think that one has the tracking.
It has the tracking, but I still don't use it. Like I honestly don't use it. I would say also the bigger screen, like the larger screen, really draws attention to how low resolution the 3DS screen is. Yeah. So I actually prefer playing on the old like tiny 3DS, you know, because it's a much the pixel density is better. Yeah. They didn't up the resolution or up the pixel density. They just made the screen bigger, you know. So it's that's Nintendo
I'll
for
tell
you.
What we all should be playing that we have not yet, and that's pinball.
Pinball.
I don't think any of us have submitted a score yet, and that's our monthly challenge. And
I have not.
If I were in the middle of my busiest time at work of the year, I would have already.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have. I think Gregory Rasputin had been like counting how many submissions we had, and it looks like he's just given up because there have just been so many. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome. There's been a lot of response. People seem to really be enjoying Last Gladiator's version 9.7. Mm-hmm. And this week we've had the weekly challenge on one of the tables in Necronomicon, which we have 9 people have submitted scores for that one. Double Dime is in the lead on the Necronomicon weekly challenge.
I am not surprised.
Looks like Private Eye has he's totally sweeping right now the top rank on all 4 tables of Last Gladiator 9.7. So congrats to Private Eye. He's apparently a pinball fiend.
He's a pinball wizard.
Cow.
Pinball wizard.
Or a pinball wizard. Yeah, that's even better. So thanks to everybody for participating so far, and it keeps going the rest of the month. We got 20 more days or so.
Yeah, I've been watching the chat. Like people say that the multi-ball thing is like what throws you for a loop. You know, it just gets super chaotic.
But that's what makes it fun, though.
It makes it fun. It definitely does. You know, and what is it like? People are topping out around like the 3 billion mark. That's usually 3 or 3.5 billion is like where folks are.
For Necronomicon, yes. For Last Gladiator, it looks like the ceiling is about 2 million for most people. I mean, Private Eye almost hit
million or billion?
Billion. Sorry.
2 billion. Okay, yeah.
Private Eye almost hit 3 billion on Knights of the Roses on that table. So,
and I think I heard them say that's currently that's like their target that they're aiming for. Like they think it's possible, aiming for 3, but we'll see. Okay. You know, yeah. So we're gonna jump in there and we're gonna be like on the bottom floor. I was planning on doing it last week. I was planning on streaming some pinball last week, and I had it all set up, actually, believe it or not. I had the whole stream set up, and then Dan the Mega Driver reached out to me and was like, you want to do some Netlink stuff? And so I'm not saying this is Dan's fault. I'm just saying I really wanted to do some Netlink
That's just what happened.
Yeah, I really wanted to play Netlink with Dan. So I went ahead and did that instead, and that was a lot of fun. Just playing. Nice. It was kind of slow in places, but we did it. We played San Diego to UK. He's in London, so who knows what our ping was. I know some games were actually like steadily playable. Like Sega Rally was just slower. It was like the frame rate's a little slower, but there weren't any hitches or anything like that. It was just kind of that slow gameplay. I would say he schooled me on every game except for maybe a couple of frames of Bomberman. I think we ended up drawing on Bomberman, but literally he schooled me on every game.
Dang, congrats to Dan.
So yeah, Dan is no slouch.
Saturn gamer
on all that stuff. I definitely need to get my shit together and come back and rematch. But
need to start labbing some Virtual Fighter and doing some practice laps in Sega Rally.
Ironically, even though our connection was pretty bad for Puzzle Bobble, he schooled me on that too, and I feel bad for him because he just barely missed our online tournament with the Puzzle Bobble because they got their modems like a week late, for the bracket, unfortunately.
We'll circle back eventually.
Yeah, we'll circle back, and there'll be something up next time. I'm sure we'll be doing another online tournament after this one's over, so he'll be able to get in on that.
Pudgy Bunny's looking forward to us running another Bomberman tournament because Bomberman is her jam. She loves
that's her jam, and and that was you missed that one because you didn't get your modem before that one finished up.
That was the previous online tournament that we ran with SHIRO.
Yeah.
That ended before I got my modem. So.
Yeah, sorry about that. But hey, you have it now. You're online now. So that's great.
Just blame Night of Dragon. He was the one who took so long, right?
Blame Night of Dragon. I'm not going to blame Night. He will...
Slacker, as he likes to call all
he'll
of
kick
us.
my ass.
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of VF6 requests in the chat, but like, hey, do you think VF6 is going to be a thing? Probably not.
Oh, yeah, they're working on Virtua Fighter 6. Yeah. Definitely.
Sure.
Yeah. Totally. No, they absolutely are working on Virtua Fighter 6. I'm sure they are. They just probably don't want to announce it until it's like, really? You don't think? I'm sure they're working on it. There's no reason for them to like for the Yakuza team to devote people and time and resources to like porting Virtua Fighter 5 into their Dragon engine and then putting it on the PS4 if they weren't going to use all that knowledge and all that work to actually like work on a sequel.
Virtua Cop 4 when? Nick, you definitely
nice. I'm very not faithful.
Nick says that it's work in Sega Rally that is keeping him from getting his Sega Rally online. I would argue that that he has to play Sega Rally at least once online before he publishes that video. Yeah, because like I would love for him to at least plug the fact that Sega Rally is still playable online, on real hardware today. But yeah, no, I mean I've seen the trailer for the Sega Rally video, and it's so hyped. Like I can't even tell you, it's going to be so amazing. Nick's been busting his ass for how long now? I don't know.
Months and months.
Well, has it even almost been a year?
That'd be good.
Is it like, I mean, if you count like the time that he was doing the move and stuff like that, but yeah, it's been a while. So too long. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody's like asking. I like Moose thing. We only sell real guns in the USA, not toys. I mean, the thing is that if you want to be an actual cop, you definitely could do that. That's pretty easy to do. If you like, I think it'd be easier to become actual cop than wait for Virtua Cop 4, to be honest.
Yeah, Slowcoin. He has the modem. He has the whole setup. He just isn't set up yet. But we'll get there. We'll get him there. And by the same token, I need to get Peter Malik, our SHIRO, a live modem so that he can get his hardware online. So that'll be great.
Yeah.
So let me bring up the browser, I guess, if we have some news.
Let's show everybody the video that you made earlier this week, Dave.
Oh, you want to do that first?
People. Yeah, I think we should. I think we should do that first.
Bridges, Dave. I got the matches and the gas.
No, it's not burn bridges. But if you're listening on the podcast, then just head to the SHIRO YouTube channel, and the video will be up there. Just a little hype trailer.
That's all it is. It's a bumper
in honor of tomorrow's 29th anniversary of the North American launch, but also just to kind of I guess you'll hear.
So, I mean, be warned, it's very cheesy, and I'm aware of that. I kind of leaned into the cheese when I was editing it. So, I mean, so somebody remarked on that on the comments, and I'm like, yes, I am aware. It is incredibly cheesy, but that's the point. I'm trying to like hammer home a point here, and it was inspired by something I recently listened to, which I'll talk about in a minute. So, without further ado, here is the silly bumper video that I put together and posted to Twitter. I'll mute our mics for this.
We started our rollout of Sega Saturn yesterday. Our retail price is between $399 and $449.
$299. What exactly happened to the Sega Saturn?
The Saturn's ill-conceived Western launch.
Not just a single console failure, but the beginning of the end for Sega's hardware empire. It failed to capture the attention of gamers and was ultimately a commercial failure.
The rise and fall of the Sega Saturn.
Let's talk about the Sega Saturn and what went wrong.
The Sega Saturn, a failed console right before the Dreamcast.
Countless videos on YouTube about why Saturn failed, why Sega failed. Sega failed, Sega failed, Sega failed.
What went wrong with the Sega Saturn? What went wrong?
We are ready.
That is it.
We are lighting a fuse. We are waging a war against the narrative. All the narratives. We just want people to realize you need to play the Sega Saturn. We try to hear, Saturn's dead. This is a dead console. This is not a console that succeeded. That's
Sorry, I keep coughing.
True that in some aspects we did not fail. I mean, it has more games than the U.S. library and Japan library of the N64 combined.
Mm-hmm.
It did not fail. It succeeded.
Yeah, and I mean,
it doesn't sell as much. Doesn't mean
The other thing is, the Saturn. You talk about something being a failure, and you think, well, okay, it's dead and gone. And I guess part of what we're trying to say with the video, and part of the mission of SHIRO overall, I would say, is to put out there that the Saturn is very much alive, mostly thanks to the community. Continuing to do new stuff with it, continuing to make new homebrew games and develop new peripherals and hardware to make it easier and better to play your Saturn. People working on fan translations so we can experience all these Saturn games that we never got to get in the 90s. So, it's also about changing the narrative to think about the Saturn in a different way, that it is alive right now. And, it's a console that shouldn't just be remembered for the history in the 90s. It didn't end
in the West.
There.
In the
West. But I mean, it also ended in Japan in the 90s, too, when the Dreamcast
True, but I mean, the games are sold into the 2000s. I guess here's the thing. Yeah. I was listening to a CU podcast episode, actually. Funny enough, and of all things that, kind of inspired me to do this.
Inspired him to start burning bridges.
Pat Contry was talking about how like the sun has pretty much set on the Atari 2600 in terms of interest in collecting and stuff like that. Like prices are starting to really fall out because the crowd that loved the Atari 2600 was around for it, is interested in discussing it and stuff like that, has kind of moved on. And you're starting to see the same thing happen to the NES, like everything goes in waves, right? And
which
there's
is
a
his
bubble,
big
right?
favorite console, right?
Exactly, which is his favorite console. But he's like, I'm starting to see it with NES. NES prices are starting to go down. We saw it happen with the 2600. It's going to inevitably happen with every console, and and Adam Koralik said it too. It's all tied to the generation that grew up with it, and as they get older, so it really got me thinking that like it's been 30 years almost, right? And we only have so much more time left, to enjoy the Saturn, like being in the spotlight. At all, like in any, obviously the PlayStation is going to have its time too, and the 80s recently you've had stuff like Stranger Things and you've Dungeons and Dragons returning to popularity and people taking interest in the 80s, and then it's moving on into the 90s, right? And so that time is coming, and folks are gonna focus on nostalgia for the 90s, and it's like, do we want the narrative during that time to be the same thing that we've spent the last 30 years talking about, which is really just Saturn's quote unquote failure in the West? And then it got me thinking too. It's like, okay, so here's a console that arguably at the very minimum sold around 9.25 million units. That's at the bottom. Some estimates are between 9.25 million up to like 16 million, and that might be a difference between like sell through and actually selling
into
sell
the
through.
Channel or selling through
9.25 million. It just amazes me that you can sell 9.25 million of anything and folks can still consider it a failure. You know what I mean? And folks will say, oh well, that's basically like Wii U sales numbers, right? Yes, but this was in 1995, right? The
video game industry was
the video game industry wasn't even as big in 1995 as it was when the Wii U was around. So it's like, if you start thinking about all this, it's like, it's amazing that we considered a failure based on sales figures, but even then they sold like 9.25 million units worldwide, and it's tough. Like, I feel like Saturn often can't get a break, The thing that drives me crazy, that you good point. If you think about the N64
the Nintendo GameCube were massive commercial failures in their own in their own regards. They were the least selling of each generation. Guess what? They're still following. Remember, how many videos do you see online of GameCube is a commercial failure, or why this was a commercial failure? No, everyone loves these consoles. They're always seen as successes, even though technically, like Saturn, they are commercial failures. But these consoles are not treated the same way.
Well, even the Dreamcast sold pretty much the same amount of worldwide units as the Saturn, and nobody calls the Dreamcast the failed console after the Saturn. No, it's the Saturn, this failed console before the Dreamcast. It's reductionist, is what it is. It's reductionist, and it's like
it's clickbait.
It's just going. It's just we shouldn't just get to that conclusion automatically. I mean, yes, we know the history, and we do understand that there was a lot of infighting or disagreements between Sega of America and Sega of Japan, and it's been talked about to death. And I'd say that the dude that has done it the most justice is our own Nick. In his documentaries, laying it all out unbiased, without any pushing any specific agenda or opinion. It's just like, this is what happened. What do you think? If you were Bernie Stoller, what would you have done? That kind of thing, But the fact is, we've spent 30 years talking about this now. And I'm just like, this has been our reality, at least in the West, for the last 30 years. And it's like, at what point can we just have more of a warm-hearted, nostalgic look back on this console, like the Japanese must be able to do, without any kind of fettered, negative emotions attached to it. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like it's a ball and chain that kind of weighs it down on our end. Whereas for them, it's just pure nostalgia, because they don't have that kind of stigma attached to it. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Go ahead, Pat. Sorry.
I just want to say that Dan the Major brought up a good point. Is that compared to all those other communities, NES, PS1, and Atari 2600, the community that's the level of Saturn isn't there. There's no incentive to make a NES game. I mean, how much stuff is this isn't a dig at Pat a call out, but how many people that do fan translation, do projects, or Pat bringing to the forefront? We treat every developer on the Saturn like a celebrity. They're on the show, they show off their games, we shout them out, we say who these people are, versus fan translation of this game came out, cool, all right, you can go download that here. Thank you for
because we know what kind of a Herculean effort it often is to translate a Saturn game, that you have no source code for. So everybody who worked on them, they're worthy of being lauded publicly in stories on videos, that sort of thing.
Truth is, there's an ulterior.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I just want to say that, and most people that do that and put out these videos about these fan translations are like, oh yeah, thank you to whoever did it, and it's like, no, this person did it. Like when we did Bulk Slash, we were like, yeah, specifically Dan, Lacquerware, all these people, Shadow Mask, Momphis. Or Momdu, Momphis, did these and worked on these games, and we shout these people, we put them on a pedestal because that's what they deserve, and I think that's why there's so much retention and close community, and why I think the Saturn really is our future, no pun intended. This is propping these people up and being like, it's like this is why we're celebrating it. We're not old media where it's like, oh yeah, here's a cool fan translation, that's great. Anyways, let's go on the next article. It's like, this is we want to prop these people up. We want to encourage people to do this thing. And if people aren't, and they put all this work towards oh yeah, here's this thing, good, thank you whoever did it, and it's like, well, who did it then? It's like, I don't want to know oh, that's cool, here's a translation. We want people knowing, I want to put Pat on a pedestal.
I mean,
do you mean me or the NES punk?
No, you.
Oh,
yeah.
No, I don't deserve the pedestal. I don't do shit.
I have to say, there is an ulterior motive here. There is I will say there is a more tangible reason why I want to do this and why I'm pushing for this, and that is that. So I want, even though I used sound bites from different videos on YouTube, I'm not trying to throw any specific person under the bus. What I am trying to say is this is representative of the conversation over the last 30 years.
problem.
And it's not just YouTube. I realize only came about in 2006, but before that you had magazines and trade publications, and really from the dawn of the
websites.
And websites. You know what I mean? And so it's like the narrative has been spun for the last 30 years, regardless of the media, regardless of the format. Ultimately, it's sent a message to Sega, and they listen. And that message is that we can sell Genesis in the West, we can sell Dreamcast in the West, but we can't sell Saturn in the West because it's perceived as a failure. I'm sure that if they did a Saturn Mini, it would be a foregone conclusion to release it in Japan. Not so sure about the West. What I want is to change the narrative, change the conversation, and send Sega a very strong message that we are interested in Saturn. Saturn was not a failure to many of us, and a lot of us would vote with our dollars, in terms of supporting any kind of hardware or any kind of games, re-releases, ports, remakes, or new games done in those beloved franchises like Clockwork Knight. I don't know if we'll ever see, but the point is that if Sega's listening, and the overall tone that they get is that, okay, Sega Saturn, it's this console that everybody kind of has a respect for and loves talking about the history, but ultimately it's just seen as like a commercial failure. How much do we want to take a risk on that? How much do we want to, how many people are going to put their money where their mouth is when it really comes to like us, taking a financial risk on putting something out there? And so it's like, I'd really like to move on from the failure narrative onto a more, positive conversation in terms of Saturn, so that we can send a clear message to Sega that we love the Saturn, and that the community as a whole is very interested in Saturn stuff, Yeah.
No, exactly. I know exactly what you mean, because I think I'm tired of conventions, people going, oh, cool, it's a Saturn. Oh, too bad it's too expensive to play. Right. Or they acted like it's a novelty thing. Like, oh, look at this cool novelty thing. It's like, and we're just like, looked as like, oh, that's a cool gimmick. How long are you guys going to last for? Right. And it's like, excuse me.
It's not an Atari Jaguar.
Almost 10 years.
Like, it's not, I don't mean to throw shade at the Jaguar, but the Jaguar sold maybe 180,000 units. Okay. The 3DO sold, the 3DO, which was Time Magazine 1993. Time Magazine's product of the year only sold 2 million worldwide. Okay. So we're talking about 9.25 million units worldwide. Okay. It's a different conversation. It's not, it may, you can call it a failure all you want, but I mean, there's an install base, and there's a lot of games. There's a huge software library and a lot of love for this console. And I mean, in some countries, folks are saying, thank God, Dave, that you put out this video. Like Stika over in Portugal is like, thank you, because none of the failure narrative resonates with me. It's bonkers, because where I came from, it was a success, and of course Japanese folks are probably just like silly Americans. They who knows, they maybe don't even watch most Western YouTube. They have Nico or whatever.
We get a lot of retweets from Japanese people sometimes.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of Japanese people on Twitter, in the very least.
Yeah, and I know for a fact that they've been retweeting us and looking at our content. So I think we are I wouldn't say pretty well known. I think that we have a presence there in the Japanese retro game market. Not a big one per se, but I think that we're actually showing them this off and making a dent. I feel like that people are starting, we got big people commenting on our videos and stuff like that. I mean, we have Maximilian Dude tweeting our stuff out. We have we have people like Scott Skeletons from Fighting seeing it, and we're educating. Good. He was like, I thought emulating for Saturn was bad. It's like,
I mean, no, that's crazy, because back in 2008. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, that brings up a good point, Pat, that maybe we should do some kind of more of a drill down, a focus on how emulation for the Saturn is actually pretty good.
Again, because we did it already 5 years ago. That's the thing that blows my mind.
5 years is a long time in the internet.
It is. It's exactly, people forget, because
a refresher.
Either Pat, or I can't remember who it was, but and then of course the Junkyard did believe it or not, this myth is completely busted. Saturn emulation is not hard. It's totally doable, right?
Hey, credit where credit's due. Nebuchadnezzar Nuno, massive shouts out and props for all the work he's done for the emulating community, or the emulating Saturn stuff. He puts it on the map. I love his videos for the emulation. He for a fact put up stuff. You can play these games with 4K and stuff.
But that was back in 2018, believe it or not. Like those videos were pre-pandemic. I mean, so now it's like I just figured that stuff had circulated, but I guess, you know, it's just like our reach is maybe not that far. There's still people that think that Saturn emulation is hard. But I mean, come on, like Polymega is again, I think Pat and I had this conversation a couple weeks ago. Polymega is a Coffee Lake. It's a Pentium. It's a Core i5 Coffee Lake processor. Like if that thing can run Saturn and run it well, then, you know, any computer you buy from Walmart today is going to be fine. You know, you just have to like
decently, yeah.
And I mean, you, Dan, have done videos or done articles about how you can emulate Saturn on your phone, for goodness sake, you know. And
and like we've got a story coming up about some new updates for the SSF emulator. And I was running that on my netbook the other night, just to like, as I was writing the story, I was kind of seeing how, you know, some of the functions, what they look like and whatnot. And it's like, this is not a powerful netbook, but it ran Saturn games just fine. I threw Fighting Vipers at it, and I was beating people up.
Yep,
it was okay.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, SSF is great for doing like full, like real resolution screenshots. Anytime I need to do like screenshots in native Saturn resolution, I'll just fire up SSF, and just because it's so easy to do quick screenshots and they're perfectly pristine.
Is there a keyboard shortcut to do that in SSF, by the way? Do you know?
Is there a key there? I believe so. I just don't know what it is. I always use the mouse.
Okay.
But there is.
I use BizHawk on my gaming PC, which is a fork of MinDAF, and I like that one a lot for two reasons. One, it does take correct resolution screenshots of games with a keyboard shortcut. It's one of the F keys, F10 or F9, one of those two. And also, it just like natively, without needing to set it up, works with my Xbox controller that's hooked up to my PC. So I can just like play with the controller. I don't have to like figure out what keys I'm supposed to use on a keyboard.
True.
So BizHawk's awesome for those couple of things.
Panda makes a good point. SSF is great for isolating the VDP layers. You can isolate all the different layers. I use that.
SHIRO does that too.
Anytime I make like a SHIRO shirt, you know, with Saturn graphics, it's actually a composite. I'll isolate all the different layers, and then I'll get like the perfect screen. And sometimes you can't get the perfect screenshot from one screenshot, but if you take the character from one screenshot and the background from another, and then you just do nearest neighbor scaling in Photoshop, so you get those nice chunky pixels, you know, without any kind of compression. That's how I do our shirt designs, you know. So I mean, you can use that application for a lot of different stuff, making GIFs and stuff like that. But I mean, it's phenomenal. But I mean, I guess I don't want to rewrite history, folks. Like that's one thing we were talking about before the show. I don't want to rewrite history. It's important to acknowledge. It's important. Yeah, it's important to acknowledge all of the stuff that's happened. But I also think that it's important to acknowledge that the media itself, and we are the media, we're responsible. We have to take responsibility for everything we say here on live air. The media has been responsible over the past 30 years. Partially for the Saturn's fate. It's not just the hardware. It's not just Sega's, mistakes, but it's also the media, stirring the pot and churning that cycle and saying this is what's going to sell magazines. You put place, you say you do the standard. Every Christmas rolls around and it's like, what console should you buy? Well, obviously we're going to put PlayStation up at the top, then Nintendo 64, and then the Saturn way down at the bottom, and talk about how much of a failure it is, and just go round and round and round.
Happens.
Yeah, it's like forget about the fact that it's.
Oh my god, dude! That bugs me so much. The N64 just it just surprises me. There's less literally. I think there's double the library on the Japanese and U.S. market combined for the N64 than the entire library of the N64 anywhere.
Yeah,
well,
and
we're kind of in a bit of a bubble. I think to some extent as far as listening to United States media, other Americans talking about this stuff, or friends in America. We're Americans, we grew up here, and we have friends here. And the N64 was wildly successful in America. So, our generation, myself included, I got an N64 as a kid in 1997 for Christmas. We grew up having N64s everywhere, and PlayStations too, and the Saturn was relatively rare. So, you know, we are surrounded by all these people now who talk about the N64 lovingly, like it was just the best console ever, when really it really only had, let's be honest, a few handfuls of really good games, and not a lot else, you know, in that library to kind of like to discover. You know, like the Saturn has 1,000 games, and a lot of them are super cool and unique. There's a lot there to discover. That's one of the most fun things I've found about the Saturn since I first got one almost 6 years ago. So,
and it is an arcade system, you know, at its core. Like it really is, there are RPGs, there are adventure games, and what there are phenomenal. But I mean, at its core, it really is like it's the fighting game system and the shmup system and the system where you're really going to find a lot of arcade gameplay. And it's like if you hate the arcade, or if you're not into arcade gaming, I can understand why it would be like completely not your cup of tea, or that people would just avoid the console because of that. But I mean, it's a huge part of gaming. It was back then, and it still is, you know. And the
funniest thing is that's even going back to that narrative. That's an American narrative. If you ask somebody in Japan, it could be, oh, that's the visual novel system, or oh, that's the one where all those amazing the visual novels of the woman oriented games came out, like oh, Sakura Wars, or oh, you know, Tokimeki, where really hit that strive, you know, all these visual novels and dating sims like that. And that was like the Japanese view of that console. Yeah, there's arcades, but like all those different games in Japan, it's like, and the Death Crimson stuff. Yeah, exactly. Like there's so many different takes in there, and all the RPGs and stuff. Like if you ask like any of the Japanese games, like oh yeah, that's all that the good Japanese RPGs, the JRPGs and stuff.
And not to mention the fact that there are so many things that are locked to the Saturn and just have never seen the light of day on any other console. I mean,
one of the greatest RPGs of all time, Wackenroder, is stuck on the Saturn.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Panzer Dragoon Saga, Pat, but no, Wackenroder.
The fact is that if you look at Sega and you look at their not body language, but like you look at like
their
where
body work.
You look at where they put their money, you know what I mean? Where they put their focus, right? Yeah. They're very comfortable releasing Genesis stuff and Dreamcast stuff, but they're also very careful to tiptoe over the eggshells, I guess, that they perceive the Saturn to be, because it's just, you know, like, I guess not, you know, now it's like, now that they're owned by Sammy and everything like that, you know, it's like, I'm not exactly sure how they see that as far as like a risk assessment, you know? And, you know, I hate to say that because I would love to see more and more, you know, Saturn love, not just from the community, but from Sega, you know. I'd love to see them take a chance on Saturn stuff and let the community show them that we do care and that we want it. But yeah, I mean, when the narrative on you know, in the media is just like this constant like recycled thing about like, well, you know, Saturn's great, you should play it, but it was essentially a commercial failure, you know.
It's like, oh, check out this wacky console that failed in America.
It's hard for the Saturn to escape that shadow. You know what I mean? It's just hard for it to crawl out of under that,
punch through it,
and be treated the same way as like the Dreamcast is, where the Dreamcast wasn't really arguably any more successful than the Saturn was. If you look at its sales number, if we're going off of sales numbers. Of course, because the Time Extension just did an article on this, you know, and they cited our video, and I mean the first sentence opens up with, you know, failure. The way that we gauge success or failure is based on sales figures, you know, and I'm like, okay, well then why is the Dreamcast treated differently, you know?
Yeah, I hear that same argument all the time. Like I remember I was talking to somebody in a Discord a while ago about mine. It's like, oh yeah, well it's so less than 64. It's like, well, it's commercial failure. It's like, yeah, but I mean, it's not. It's like, well, but it's a failure though. It's like I'd explain. I mean, of course they probably, you know, you know, weren't thinking that well. But like, the thing is that I have to argue that it's like, yeah, I guess, yeah, by that logic, yeah, I guess it sold the least. But it's like, I mean, it's still a fantastic, and like, why are we holding that? When the Dreamcast was, you know, objectively the same failure amount, but like that still gets praised, and there's not 5 million videos of, oh, why the Dreamcast is a failed wacky console. Ooh.
Yeah,
and that might be another case of the American echo chamber happening, because the Dreamcast was pretty successful in America. It was less successful in Japan, sadly. It didn't have a very good launch, but but yeah, in America, it just always had kind of a good perception here. So I think that may be why it's seen so positively in the things that we see and hear.
Mm-hmm. Pat, I mean, like, and here's another I don't know thought I was just having is like an AES, for example. Mm-hmm. If I was one of those kind of folks who felt like I could just never afford to experience an AES in my home, you know, because it's just, and I was like, okay, but even if I wanted to just buy the hardware and a flash cart, that would run me how much for AES hardware and a flash cart?
We'll say ballpark. I don't remember the AESs off the top of my head. I'm gonna say ballpark 400 to 600, depending if you get a box for it.
And that is console. In the territory of inaccessible to a lot of folks.
The flash.
Okay.
The flash cart's another 600, so $1,200.
Oh, the flash cart is another 600. Okay, so see
what?
See now, I love Neo Geo. I absolutely adore Neo Geo. It's right under Saturn, actually, for me. I love Neo Geo, and I love the AES. I would love to own one. I don't. I have a Neo Geo CDZ. That's the closest I'll ever come. But the fact is, I'd love to have an AES, but that's just not doable. Like, I can't drop $400 on the console and then $600 on a flash cart. But you can go get a Saturn, like with no CD drive or a burnt out CD drive. We know this. You can get it for $20 to $40 at those conventions.
We literally showed it on camera. We had to do like Steve did it. They had like $20 for a burnt out laser.
$20 burnt out laser Saturn special. Pick them up, and he had a bunch of them, right? So, and now we have a cheap, less than $100 flash cart that'll get the job done on most commercial software.
It comes with its own SD card, apparently. A lot of them.
Does it? Mine didn't.
Yeah, some people. Okay, well, it comes with it.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, well, either way, the fact is, it's a far cry. Saturn's a far cry from an AES, even for the folks who cannot stomach collecting for it or don't want to have to burn CDRs, you know, because that's an added expense too. You got to go on Amazon,
right.
Get yourself a cake spindle of CDRs and then deal with all that. I mean, seriously, like, the proposition of a Saturn is not that unobtainable, and I want more folks to get one and play it, you know, so they can see what we see, you know. And I mean, hopefully they'll figure out the whole, you know, homebrew thing and the patched games on the Saru too, because, you know, then there's even a bigger reason to get into a Saturn now because of all of the community projects. But
like Voltar was like showing off to people, saying people to get it, and like I mean, as long as it's even if it's like, let's say it's the worst one in the world, like you got like the recycled one, worst case it dies after a year. That's still a year that you could be like, okay, well, I like this now. I'll buy another one that's a little bit more expensive. And you got like the $20 special, or like, we'll say, let's be conservative, $50 you found a console somewhere, or like you with the Yahoo auctions got like $100 bundle with 8 games, 2 controllers, boxed. We'll say that you paid $150. You throw the Saru, there's $200. It's like, literally, if you bought 1 or 2 Saturn games, it cost you the same amount of money.
Yeah,
and you have access to the whole library.
$200 might be half of a Saturn game, depending on the game you're looking at. Might be a fifth of a Saturn game.
And if folks says $20 for 100 limited run, CDRs. My bad. Yeah, $100 CDRs.
If folks fall in love with the Saturn, and if they play it, they fall in love with it, they find something they love on the Saturn, then the chances are when Sega decides to release a remake of something, maybe they say, wow, you know, there's this buzz about Bulk Slash, you know, and like folks are realizing what an awesome game it was. It was tailor made for the West. It just wasn't released in the West, but it was like, you know, everything about it is just knock it out of the park, you know, check all the boxes of what a great game that, I mean, like, do you know anybody that plays Bulk Slash and is like, yeah, this isn't for me? I don't. I like, everybody loves it. So it's like, imagine if that would be a day one purchase for me, for example, if they release it on the Switch, or if they release it on a new console, or Bulk Slash remake, or just a re-release 100%. Of it, because I'd want to buy that. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, you know, but folks got to fall in love with the console first, in order to foster those kind of feelings to where they're gonna want to go support it with their money, you know. And it's like, so you know, it's just very important to me to kind of change this change the narrative in the conversation. That's what the video was for. It was really a bumper for our YouTube, because we hadn't done a new one in a long time. So I was like, our YouTube channel needs a new bumper. What better to do than, this, because it's YouTube, right?
Dave, but I can only stand so much. Did you know that the Saturn, every time I open up the YouTube,
did you know?
You, of course, every time I open it, I was like, okay, shut up, Dave.
Okay. But again, a lot of people didn't know that. A lot of people don't know that, there's all this great homebrew, there's all these great patches, so much we couldn't even cover them all in an hour panel. And then, just the fact that it really is it's a treat for anybody who loves the 5th console generation, but slept on Saturn, because again, it's a phenomenal console, and it just boggles my mind that so many people have just completely sidestepped it and continue to do so because of perceived obstacles that just really aren't there anymore, is what I'm saying, so anyway.
Yeah, literally there's like no easier way. There's no easier way to get into it nowadays. Like, you can go on Yahoo Auctions right now. I guarantee you, throw a bid on any dead Saturn, you can get it for maybe less than $40, maybe 60 at worst shipped. Literally, you could go to game conventions, buy Saturn, maybe get lucky and find a burnt out one from Sega Steve, put a laser in it, or a new laser, or even an OD in it. Bam. Or if you find a Saturn, you want to I want to do the cheapest possible. Get a Saturn, get an action replay, get Pseudo Saturn on there, or buy one of those Pseudo Saturn carts on eBay. Get a stack of burnt CDRs.
Yeah,
there you go.
Really, those Pseudo Saturn cartridges cost about as much as a Saru anyway. So
right.
like $60.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
it's probably even cheaper to get a Saru at this point.
Yeah,
just
know that.
Up an SD card. Oh
yeah. Well, it's like
that was my first thing I got with my Saturn back in 2018. I'm like, okay, so it's way too expensive to buy real games aside from some of the most common ones. So what am I going to do to try out some of the whole library? Okay, well, there's these cartridges that come with this Pseudo Saturn software loaded on already. That seems awesome, and a little switch on top. I'll get one of those. It was $60.
Yeah,
with CDRs is going to be my option for a while until the Satiator came out about a year later.
That's the Pseudo Saturn Kai tax, I call it, because it always used to be the $40 special, like the Action Replay $40 special on Amazon.
Right.
$40 or less. Sometimes on a sale, you could get one for $25, right? But then once folks started buying lots of them and then flashing all of them and doing that work and then flipping them, they put them in this fancy packaging and tout it as an all-in-one, but really it's like a flashed action replay, right? So I mean, you'd pay this markup, on what's essentially a flash action replay.
The ones, just as a quick aside, the ones
the
with
bank
the
switch
on top.
Yeah,
which is what I got. That is different than just a regular action replay. Somebody, I think, is bodging together an original Saturn, a couple of original Saturn memory cards, the 1 megabyte and 4 megabyte, and they're bodging the original Saturn save space card, that memory card, because when that cartridge is working correctly, and it doesn't always work correctly, games do recognize it as an original memory card, and they will be able to save directly to it. Saturn games cannot save directly to an action replay cartridge. They don't recognize it.
It's a proprietary compressed format. It uses you can do saves. You can transfer saves from the internal.
You can transfer them from the internal memory, right? So you can't save directly.
It's compressing them and putting them in a proprietary format. So, which is not great because it can be corrupted too, so but essentially all I'm saying is the Saru, as we're seeing now, is come down to the point where, and it's being further democratized, by so many different vendors offering it for sale. Knight says has nothing to do with it being an official cart, but either way, you're right. The Saru is coming down. We see the Saru coming down to to kind of touch the same prices as folks were paying for those all-in-one carts, and I just think now is a great time. It may not always be the case that you can get a $20 or $40 Saturn with a broken laser. So people need to get in on it now. And we need to work on changing the narrative so that Sega gets a clear message that there's interest, lots of interest in Saturn, and that we would love to see them, we'd love to see them focus on those franchises, all of these franchises that are locked to the Saturn. you know?
Yeah, I just wonder if this is a video, like a standalone video, just to be like, hey, if you want to get in the Saturn, like the why Saturn's our future, and just say like this is why. Like it's just so accessible. The Mister, if you want to get one of those, you get that plus 1,000 other things, and it's almost like all the support is there for that. The emulation's there. I don't know. It's never been a better time to get into Saturn. Like there really isn't any excuses anymore. Like, oh, it's too expensive. There's always a counter to every argument nowadays. It's
right.
It's like,
and
no,
again,
it's not.
all I can say is like it was a lot more expensive for me to get like a CDZ, and it would even be a lot more expensive if I wanted to buy, you know, a regular Neo Geo CD or an AES or like any number, a CDI. I could think of numerous, a Jaguar. I can't even get a Jaguar because a Jaguar in a flash cart would be ridiculous. Again, they only sold 180,000. They only sold 180,000, right? You know, we know Saturn sold, like I said, about 9.25 million. That's what they sold. So there were obviously a lot more units in warehouse, right? And those have made it out into like, you know, a lot of Saturn stock that wasn't sold ended up being sold over time, you know, from pallets and where, you know, new old stock. Yeah. Like, so I mean, you know, there's a lot of Saturns out there, and you know, just, you know, we're just got to keep driving the interest and hoping that more people dip their toe into it and see what it's all about.
Yeah, no, it just seems like it's harder and harder to, like, I mean, hopefully we're doing a good job in getting the narrative changed, but like I still see, you know, these just wrong like statements like, oh, this is too hard emulator, oh, I thought it was challenging or something like that, and it's like, I think the N64 has more trouble emulating now than the Saturn does. Like the Saturn's just like easy now.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to move on to
let's
get things on the website?
Absolutely.
It was a good discussion.
Let's see, where should we start?
To keep the Saturn, you know, changing the narrative at the forefront of things moving forward this year.
I guess
since this is going to be the 30th anniversary of the Saturn in Japan too. It's
their
big 30th birthday.
I think we talked about this on the news, right?
Did we talk about the roundup?
Yeah, the roundup was
okay,
last week.
That was last week. Okay, so then
we talked about all the stuff in the roundup, and then I actually wrote up the roundup for the website the next day. So we don't have to talk about it again on the show.
The arcades episode with Sega Lord X and the Sega guys, go check that out. It was a fun chat. We talk about
episode. I like that.
Yeah, Pat was on with me and will be for you know, Pat kind of Peter took a step back from Editor's Corner just because of family stuff and being busy and stuff like that. So Pat's it's me and Pat for the foreseeable future in the saddle, and we are gonna we have some cool stuff planned.
Peter's not out.
Peter's not out. It's just Pat's doing a solid. Pat's doing him a solid.
The second Peter says I'm ready to step back in, I'm gone.
But well, I don't know. Maybe we'll just have to extend it. But the fact is that this was a fun chat about, you know, growing up in the 90s with the arcades when they were everywhere, and just, you know, how lucky we were to be able to experience a lot of that stuff. Sega was the king of the arcades, of course, in the 90s. Nobody else came close. Namco maybe tried giving them a run for their money, but it was Sega, you know, Sega all the way, and they were always innovating. And you know, Pat made some great points about the Naomi, like pretty much like the height of their, you know, arcade design, and where they'd basically reached parity in the arcade, in the home, and with the Dreamcast, and it was just like a golden era, I guess, the golden era of arcades before everything just became a ticket center, you know, which is what they are today.
And all the cabs are just fantastic around that time. Like the Net City, honestly, is one of my favorite cabs. It's not aesthetically as pleasing as like the Blast Cities or the Astros, but like for use wise, it's a tri-sync monitor, and they worked out a lot of the issues that the Blast Cities had with their tri-sync. So.
And if I love it. If you happen to live in a metropolitan area where you do have an arcade in your area, even a small one, even a barcade, just thank your lucky stars, I guess, and just feel fortunate, because like folks like Mel, Sega Lord X, has nothing where he is, and he even believes that it's because all of these arcades are popping up on the coasts, you know, and in large metropolitan cities, that they're essentially exporting good arcade machines from all these small towns.
Yeah, honestly, it sounds like a joke, but I think arcade gentrification is honestly a real thing.
Yeah. Like, so he's like, because he said that Mel often sees listings for arcade machines, but they're being put on a in the back of a truck and taken out of state, and so it's usually the case. He even tried to make an offer on one, and the guy was like, no, I'm selling the pair of them to some other guy who's going to take them to New York, so it's like, it's sad, but it is the truth. It's like a lot of these barcades and a lot of these, like the Sega guys, they have what is it, the Arcade Club in the UK, which sounds like an amazing place. It's like a legit arcade, and none of the ticket center stuff, or it's not all about selling beer and pizza. It's really an arcade. You go there because you want to go to an arcade. But I imagine a lot of their machines even come from smaller towns and stuff like that, because how else do you curate something like that? Most of these machines have either been dismantled or broken. It's like, when you do what you can to try to scrape together those machines that are still in good enough shape to put together one of these things. And so,
I only support ethically sourced arcade machines from Japan.
Ethically sourced?
Ethically sourced. Did I say ethnically?
Ethnically sourced.
Ethically sourced.
What Pat is saying is they all have to be net cities, right?
It's a candy cab or it's nothing.
Yeah, ethnically sourced. I love it. But anyway, so it was a great chat, and we'll have more chats. Where I think we're going to do one on just game. I think we'll do one on gaming in the 90s. Where we talk about cheat codes and magazines and I don't know, schoolyard conversations and all the silly stuff we used to do. Yanking your brother or sister's controller from the console, that kind of stuff we used to do in the 90s. Screen looking,
Screen peeking is a punishable offense by death in my household.
Yeah.
Oh,
so we'll have fun with that topic too. And Pat and I also have another one in the pipe that I'm just trying to finish editing on, which is going to be fun when we drop that.
That one was sick. I'm surprised that one didn't come out first.
Yeah, I think it was just easier for me to edit this one.
Oh, no worries.
For whatever reason. But anyway, yeah. Weekly live show. Oh, I don't have to report on last week's live show, do I? No, okay.
No, the Best of Saturn's next.
Best of Saturn. Dark Seed. Here's an interesting one. I'll read it. Mid-1995, Japan only released, based on the PC original, the psychological horror Dark Seed is a point-and-click adventure style, or adventure in the style of H.R. Giger.
Geiger.
As a successful executive, you wake up from a nightmare that a seed was planted in your brain, and boy, do you have a headache. Like they open his forehead. Yeah, the visuals in this, like, look, there's a phallus right there. That's totally H.R. Geiger.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Cronenberg stuff right there.
Compatible with the Saturn mouse, the gameplay is point and click, but the twist is that certain in-game actions are timed. It's entirely possible to put yourself into an unwinnable situation and have to restart the game. The visuals are bordered and are stylistically somewhat monochromatic. A Japan-only release, the spoken dialogue is nevertheless all in English, making it relatively import-friendly. And this is, this falls in line with that trend of like bringing PC games over to the Saturn in Japan, and then us really never seeing them come back on in the West.
Just like that Prisoner of Ice game that got an English translation last year.
Yeah, now Dark Seed got a sequel too that also made it to Saturn, Dark Seed 2. Yeah, they are very, like, the visuals are not inspired, right, but actually like done by H.R. Geiger. Like he partnered with this project. He was involved, yeah. And I mean, the house here looks like something from like Clock Tower or something. It's got some of the similar aesthetics. It is a point-and-click adventure. It's really interesting. I've wanted to play it on the Saturn, and I've tried, even with the English dialogue. It's an adventure game, and you need to like be able to see. With adventure games, you can kind of like hunt around for what you're supposed to click on. But if you can't read the description of it, you're just like, okay.
There's descriptions in Japanese, and this game, I have like kind of looked at it a little bit for translating it, and it is possible, but like it's not that hard as far as editing the text. However, there's not a lot of space for getting your English translation in there.
I noticed
which is the problem with a lot of translations.
Yeah.
So yeah, you probably need to figure out either like a variable with font solution, or a solution for kind of jumping your text into like a blank space of memory or something, so you can have more room, or do both. So yeah, there'd be a little bit of a tough one.
Even the Japanese font looks like it's squished here. Like it's trying real hard to stay within that little box that they made for it. So it's like, I can see like that's a lot of text. That all those Japanese characters amount to like probably 2 or 3 screens of text of American text. Or U.S. English text. But yeah, so it's interesting. It's a cool game though. Like folks can definitely play it on the PC. And I haven't myself. Like this is not one that I've actually played through on the PC, but it is available, and like you could probably get it on Good Old Games or I don't know. There's a couple different like archival sites there that have like old games. But yeah, so an interesting one. I would be interested to see if anybody would ever be interested in translating this. I think there was some interest from Josh Prod a while back that he mentioned it, but it just nothing ever came of it. So
yeah, probably just the difficulty on just getting Saturn stuff going.
Yeah, because I think that they were basically going to be beholden to someone in the community volunteering to do it, and ultimately, like Dan said, it's not just a walk in the park.
Yeah,
it's probably one of the harder obstacles. But anyway, an interesting game nonetheless, and yeah, once again an example of a US PC game, an English PC game making it onto Saturn, like Zork. I mean, it's crazy. They have a version of Zork and Return to Zork, but we don't. So
or like a JB Herald is kind of a similar
JB
situation.
Herald,
right?
yeah, absolutely. Or the Angel Devoid,
Yeah,
so,
Death Mask. Both of which have gotten English translations, so check those out.
Yes, so it can be done. You go ahead and handle this one. New beta updates come to SSF emulator.
Sure. Yeah, so I personally have not reported on the SSF emulator before, and I hadn't actually used it before. I, of course, knew about it because this SSF is one of the earliest Saturn emulators. In fact, it's going to celebrate its 25th anniversary this December. Its first publicly released version, it was December 1999. I actually don't know of an emulator that came out before SSF. Maybe others in the community might know.
There were.
Was Cassini before SSF? I know that's another early one. And
it was very early. Giri and Cassini were like early. I don't know if they were before it, but like, yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, SSF, it's an old one, but it's still going strong. It actually didn't get any updates for 2023 and most of 2022. And then all of a sudden, the developer, who's a Japanese man named Shima, he just started updating again in January. He's released 3 updates now. The most recent one was last weekend. They're all considered betas. I don't know when the last release that was considered a full release of SSF was. It had to have been years ago. The most recent one is called Preview R31. You can get it from Shima's GitHub, which we link in the story. He's just his GitHub name is Shima ZZZ. I don't know why. And he's also on X, also known as Twitter, or he's Fess X, FESSX. But his name is Shima. He put out a few updates now, and as far as I can gather, there are some new features to it, including the ability to have cheats enabled in games now, using like action replay style cheats, like CHT files. And what it looks like is happening is he's got like a tick box in the options under the Program 4 tab. And you hit enable cheat, and then you restart the emulator. When you start it up again, if you open a game that has a cheat folder in SSF's cheats folder, then it will just use those cheats. Like it's just kind of a fire and forget type of thing. You don't really have to mess around with it any more than that. I'm not sure if you can just like add your own cheats in there if you have access to, like, you know, the action replay CHT files. I imagine you would. But what SSF is looking for is like a folder that is named the same as the product code of the game. So like I have, for example, layer section, the shmup layer section, its product code, which you can find these product codes on like Sega Retro or Satakore, websites like that. Its product code is T_1101G. And so a folder is in the cheats folder of SSF called T_1101G. And then in there is the CHT file for
you can also just pop the disk into your CD-ROM drive and open it in the Knight's patcher, and it'll give you the product code.
It'll tell you.
Yeah, because I'm guessing that's why it's working. Has it working this way? Is it's reading the emulator's reading the product code from the header on the disk, and that's how it's like comparing. Yeah, so
yeah, I'm sure it is. So, but that's kind of cool. You have some cheats. He has 4 that come with the emulator right now. 4 games. You can do cheats for. They're all shmups, so he must be a shmup fan. It's like Thunder Force 5, Space Harrier, Darius Gaiden, and Layer Section. So there you can try those out.
Popular game series in Japan, so it would not surprise me.
Right, makes sense. And I have a few screenshots here in the article that I took using the latest version of SSF. If they just look like regular Saturn games, well, there you go. That shows you that SSF is emulating them pretty well. I tried out I think it's Daytona, and Bulk Slash, of course, and Fighting Vipers, some of my favorite games. And then I emulated the Night of Dragon translation of Castlevania. So yeah, they all looked pretty good, and they all ran fine as far as I could see. So it was good. I was using the 64-bit version, and that is another thing that is new in this version of SSF. Just this past weekend, he added a 64-bit executable. He also still has the original 32-bit executable, which is just called like SSF.exe, and the 64-bit one is SSF64.exe, I think. So if you have a 64-bit operating system, and if you have any recent version of Windows, 8, 10, 11, then it's probably a 64-bit. You can use either one. If you're using a really old operating system for some reason, you probably just want to stick with a 32-bit one. It might not matter much right now anyway, because Shima said in a tweet that it may not have much advantage over the 32-bit version. He didn't really elaborate, but I'm guessing that means he hasn't really implemented anything in code that takes advantage of, say, 64-bit executable, which the main advantage is that it's able to see and use more of your system's RAM.
Right.
So that may be helpful, really helpful to an emulator. But I mean, a 32-bit one already can see like 2 gigabytes. So
yeah, I mean, SSF
doesn't need to use more.
SSF has been running like almost flawlessly for several years, in my opinion.
It's a lightweight emulator.
So yeah, it's lightweight. It renders everything in native resolution. So it's not like there might be like a scaling option, but I mean, essentially, it's still very lightweight. It's not, it focuses on just like giving it to you exactly like it would be on a Saturn versus like any of the quality of life stuff like 4K scaling and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, it does have a cool little tick box in one of those options tabs for transparency, turning like mesh transparencies into true transparencies. So that's kind of a cool little quality of life thing with the emulator. Another thing I wanted to mention was that something I think he just added a few versions ago is a memory search function. You can actually look at all the registers, all the memory registers in the Saturn as the game is running. You go into I think it's the Program 4 tab under Options, and you select Debug Mode. And then when you restart the emulator, I have a screenshot. Do I saw that? No, I took it out. But it's kind of crazy. There are all these little windows that pop up alongside the main emulator window, showing all the registers and all the data that's happening in them. And when you are running in debug mode, there are a few new options at the top of the main SSF window that are related to looking at the memory. And one of the things is a search function. And so when you go to that search function, I do have a screenshot of that here in the text of the story. And you can just search for any value. I think it's just in hex.
Right.
And it'll show you all the places that it finds those in real time while the game is running.
Oh, wow.
So that could be really useful. Everybody's talked about Yabasan SHIRO or any other fork of Yabause as being the emulator with debugging functions and being able to like look at for specific things in memory, that sort of thing. But I mean, SSF can do that too now. So maybe, and it probably won't have as many audio issues as Yabause frequently has, where, you just have the audio glitches out or sometimes the whole thing will just crash. SSF, I think, is generally regarded as a more stable emulator. So, people working on hacks, Bo Bales, for example, or Derek Pascarella working on fan translations, they might want to look at SSF and try out the new memory search function.
If they're already using that.
Yeah, the only issue that a lot of people have had with it over the years is that it's been closed source, and that he's always kind of held it close to his chest in terms of his work on it and stuff. But the fact is, I'm kind of curious. I guess I'm speculating here, but I'm wondering if some of this recent work might be inspired by City Connection doing these recent, like you said, they're using like a variant of SSF, right, to run those games.
Yes,
That's for Yabause. No one really has. Like,
no, it's SSF. I thought that people had determined that a version of SSF was being used for those City Connection Saturn tribute re-releases, which started coming out in, I think it was 2021 or 2020. I forget off the top of my head. But I mean, that does sort of coincide with when the updates for SSF, the public updates for SSF, stopped coming. They pretty much dried up in February of 2022. And all those games started coming out not long before that. So this makes me also wonder if we're getting any more Saturn tribute releases, at least any on the horizon, because if the SSF developer has suddenly come out of hiatus after almost 2 years, does that mean they don't need him anymore? He's not under an NDA or under any kind of agreement anymore? I'm not sure what's
here's the
going on.
thing. When you're using an open source library, the licensing and stuff like that can get kind of weird. I don't know, weird, right? But when you've just got one person to deal with, again, speculating here because I don't have any proof that they've reached out to him and said, hey, like, you made this emulator, it works great, and it's just one person. It just
seems like that may
and
be
it's
the
one
case.
person we have to deal with. It's closed source, so can we like either buy a version of it or like, can you make these improvements so that we'll be able to run more games on it, And I mean, who knows? Maybe if they're paying him or giving him any kind of incentive to do that, it'd be interesting. But like the puzzle pieces fit. I'm just curious and kind of speculating out loud.
Another theory that I have is that maybe he's doing these the updates for the, because I remember they had that issue where they fixed the lag, input lag on the Cotton Tribute.
Yeah, they made it a little better.
Maybe it's like a thing like, oh yeah, you could make these updates and then like a year or two later you can add that to the actual emulator, like it's a licensing thing or it's like a timed exclusive.
Yeah, I wonder if he is, like a memory search function. Seems like it would be real useful for somebody who's putting out commercial releases and maybe has to adjust something or hack a new translation into something like the recent
Layer section.
Yes, thank you. It's also Lanos too.
Lanos,
yeah. So I wonder if he's kind of, they asked him to do that and he did that, and now he is taking that and putting it back into the public release of SSF.
Right.
Does City Connection know he's doing that? Are they okay with it? We don't know. Lots of questions. But either way, it is available to us to use now, so that's super cool.
Cool. Anything else you want to cap that off? Any other thoughts?
I think it's good online. I'm really excited to see these emulators just getting updated.
Yeah. I'm curious, Dan, what do you think of the emulator in general? Like, what's your go-to for Saturn emulation?
My go-to for a little bit now has been BizHawk, like I was talking earlier in the show about how I like that it just uses controllers without having to fiddle around, and it takes screenshots at native resolution with like just an F key, like super easy.
Does BizHawk allow you to just mount? Does it allow you to just open an ISO via the
it works
desktop
like
browser?
It works like regular MNAFN, where you just like take a Saturn's Q file and just drag and drop onto bizhawk.exe, and it opens right up.
With SSF, I believe you've always had to mount the disk image to like a virtual drive, and at least that's been my experience, like for the longest time.
Maybe I should write in the story you don't have to do that anymore, because you don't.
You don't? Okay.
No,
that's big.
Least, with these, I'm gonna have the story. I kind of whipped this thing up. See, this is the other thing. I haven't reported on SSF before, so I don't have quite the history with it. With SSF, you open it up as if it's like, it works like Yabahuse, really. You open up SSF, brings up your window, and you go to like File and like load ISO, and then it gives you a dialog box, and you navigate to your Q file or whatever. You double click the Q file, and bam, the game loads right up.
See, that might not seem like a big deal to a lot of people, but that's actually a good thing. That's really good, because for the longest,
like daemon tools or something.
You either needed daemon tools or virtual, clone drive, virtual drive. You needed to mount the disk image, and depending on whether it was a BinQ or CCD, or you needed different ways of being able to mount the disk to a virtual drive.
I wonder when that change got made.
Yeah, I don't know,
because I checked like the three most recent versions. They all seem to work the same way. Like all three of the versions that were released this year.
Okay.
So maybe that's something new this year. I don't know. I tried to go through his tweets and translate them in DeepL as best I could, and I didn't see anything talking about that. So maybe it's something you did in 2022.
Maybe Knight knows. I don't know if he would, but the most recent version that I was using was like, I think version 12. So maybe that was already a little old, but for the longest time. So. This what?
This is version 31. So it's 12 was way in the past.
Maybe we're not talking about the same thing, because no, I mean I only downloaded this from his website like a year ago, so I don't know if it's version
from his website,
or I'm sorry, from Emulator Zone, and they always host like the latest build. So I think that just whatever I downloaded like as of last year, it's still needed to mount.
Maybe that's the most recent like full release that's not considered a preview or a beta, but I mean like on Shima's GitHub, all of the updates dating back to 2021 have all been considered preview builds. But he's made a bunch of updates in that time.
Yeah,
so
it
I mean,
surprise me if it just was they didn't put up the preview build on ISO Zone.
Okay.
But I mean, you may as well just download it. It runs. It works. And one thing I wanted to mention real quick was for anyone who's interested in checking out the debug functions, the memory search functions and stuff, it might seem a little obtuse. And he gave a bunch of explanation on how to use those functions on Twitter in Japanese. So I used DeepL to machine translate all of that and put all of his explanations in our story on SegaSaturnShiro.com. So you check out my story on the site, and you can at least see some translated instructions on how to use that.
Dan, did you by any chance try to capture video?
No, I didn't.
Because I also know that the old, the way that it always worked before is it would do video capture. So screenshots would be BMP, would basically be bitmap images, and then video would be like AVI. But it would be like this very strange. You would need like a special tool that came with it to be able to take that and save it to other video formats and stuff like that. So weird. So I'm wondering if that's also been fixed. And I'm definitely going to have to check this out for sure. Like I didn't know that this much has been done to the emulator, and I'm honestly the target market for this because
you sound so excited.
I do. I love SSF. It's been a great emulator for me over the years. It's definitely been like a road warrior kind of, it's always worked. It's always worked. It's never been about the bells and whistles. It's always been about like stable gameplay and stable frame rates, and hell, you've been able to run it on a potato. Like I think I did a video back in 2017 where I borrowed or I got this like abandoned Dell laptop, Inspiron laptop from an office closing thing. They just gave it to me, and it was like a Core 2 Duo, right? So it was not like a very powerful laptop, but it was able to run the latest version of SSF just fine at like 60 frames per second, and I like tested out a few games, and it had VGA out, so I was even able to put it into the XRGB and stuff. And so you could pretty much run SSF on almost anything, just not a phone. It had to be x86 basically. And now you're saying it there's an x64 version, but that's cool. So this is great. news, and I'll definitely download the latest and try it out and let you know what I think. Maybe by next week's show, we can talk about it some more.
Yeah,
that's
if you
awesome.
want to record some video and check it out,
I might.
by all means. I'll have to look into maybe when the last version was that still made you like play a game by mounting it, like on a virtual CD drive.
Yeah, I don't know how
so
far.
I can kind of, edit that into the story when it changed. Because it's super easy now. It works just like any other emulator.
Right. It's like the discrepancy between an official release and then all of the nightlies or whatever. Yeah. So I hadn't been following all of those beta releases. So that's cool. Mostly just because I haven't needed to emulate Saturn, but I mean, it's great to know that it's there. So that's awesome. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we just cap this off?
I don't think so. This has been a supersized episode of the SHIRO Show.
Very big.
Thanks for sticking with us, everybody.
Definitely. All right. Cool. Well, I mean, I'll go ahead and read off our patron supporters.
Do we get a new one? I think we had a couple new ones.
New, but at a different level, or let me see here.
New ones. I got some new people that joined in.
Yeah, go ahead and shout them if you. I just have the $10 and up list here, but
okay.
Was there anyone specific that you wanted? Okay, hold on a second. Let me just see.
We had like emails for 2 people.
Yeah, new this month. Let's just take it. Well, there's Wafflekin. Okay, so yeah, let me clear the filters and go new this month. Let's see what we've got here.
Watch Shadow Master's Twitch stream. He's going to do Animatrix this month. So there you go.
Yeah, so we do have a new one, but they're also in the $10 and up tier. So I could actually just read them off. Yeah. So let's see here. I'll do that and that. I don't know why this is doing this. Okay, there we go. Try that again. There we go. All right. So we've got A Murder of Crows. We got Blue Moon 95. We got Casual Seth. We've got Cerulean. I always think it's Causal Seth, but no, it's Casual Seth. Cerulean.
Causal and Effect Seth.
Chris Piper. Chris 1997 XX. We got Daniel Fredrickson, or Dragons of Saturn. We've got David Zaney. We've got Derek Pascarella, A-Team. Emerald Nova. Fat Drunk Friend Otaku. Jam Clash or Rank. Ian Kegg. Jay Hersey. Johannes Fetz. Lion Wing Publishing. Momfus. We got Normal Guy. We got Newt Rageous. Robert Ramsey. Rowan Dinked. Sega Steve, Stoneman, the Sega Guys, and new supporter Wafflekins. Appreciate you. And Young Money Sweet, or Jung Money Sweet, depending on how you want to say it.
Rhythm Sweet.
Right, Jung Rhythm Sweet.
Jung Rhythm Sweet.
No, yeah, we got all those folks are supporting us at the $10 and up level, and you get your name read out loud on the cast.
On the show.
Thank you for supporting us.
Thank you for supporting us. Absolutely.
You don't have to spend your money on a Sega Saturn media group like this one, but it is helping to spread the mission that to help change the narrative.
And a lot of these
Saturn
folks
is our future.
Absolutely. A lot of these folks too, I think it should be noted, like date back from 2021, like early 2021. So
yeah,
like most of the names that I'm reading here, I've been reading. Pat and I have been reading for like the last 2 years. So I mean that is support right there.
No, the last 3 years.
Yeah, and wow. Okay, well then that just means time is flying faster than. But I mean, we've also got a bunch of folks supporting us at like the $3 level. And they are also getting early access to content, and they're part of our insider chat on the Discord.
And thank you to them too.
Thank you to everybody who supports us at all financially. If you can't do that, you can always buy like a hoodie or a shirt, and that helps throw a couple bucks our way. And if you can't support us financially, that's fine as well. Like, we're really just happy to have you be a part of our community and play the Sega Saturn, share your stories, be a part of the community, and find a niche. Find something that you want to do with the Saturn, be it streaming or taking part in the tournaments or even working.
challenge.
Yeah, finding a team and working on a game. Like if you have a set of art skills, or you're really good at hacking, and you wanna open a hex editor and do a bunch of work.
If you don't know anything, you want to learn where you can start.
That's true.
Yeah,
like, absolutely. We have a channel for that. There's a channel for that, and there's folks that can help you on your path. To go from zero to hero. And there's folks like Frog Bowl here. Thanks for the show. Well, thank you, Frog Bowl, for inspiring folks with your little, hypothetical builds of what could be. Showing folks that the Saturn is definitely a powerful console, and that it needs more support. So whatever your hobby is, or however you like to interact with this console, we're just happy to have you be a part of the community and share that love of the Sega Saturn together. And without further ado, and until next time, this has been Saturn Dave, Danthrax, and Trainico.
Patrick.
Reminding you that you must play Sega Saturn.
Play Sega Saturn.
You must.
We'll catch you later.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
SHIRO しろ